75. For more information, just give us a call, 352-369-9101, 352-369-9101. Sunbelt Rentals. Get it done, rent it now. 352-369-9101.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA. Ocala.
All right, 5 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of weeks ago, I've shared this with our listeners. I want our next guest to hear this a little bit. I went to New York with my son. My son is 30 years old, and it was an opportunity for me to show him where I walked and showed him some of the memories that I had, and even memories that his grandparents had, which would have been my mom and dad, and it was, my mom and dad lived a long, full life and then died after having that long, full life. And when I read the information about our next guest, I thought, wow, he didn't get to experience this. His mom committed suicide early on in his life. And gosh, this is a fascinating story. Jeremy Gavron's memoir is what we're going to talk about. Jeremy is on the phone. Jeremy has titled his memoir, A Woman on the Edge of Time. In 1965, his mother, Hannah Gavron, gassed herself just 2 years after and 2 blocks away from where Sylvia Plath killed herself in the same manner. She left behind a suicide note, 2 young sons, and a soon-to-be published book called The Captive Wife. Wow, fascinating. Jeremy is on the phone. He's an award-winning author in his own right, a former correspondent in Africa and Asia. He teaches in the MFA program at Warren Wilson College in North Carolina. And let's say good morning to him. Good morning, Jeremy. How are you?
Good morning, Larry. I'm very well, thanks.
Thank you for being on the air with us. This is already captivating us all, just listening to that little bit of information.
Oh, well, it's good to be on the show. Thank you.
How old were you when your mom committed suicide?
I was 4.
Oh, my gosh. Do you remember her at all?
No, I have no memory of her at all. I sort of hoped that the process of researching her life might bring back some memories, but it hasn't. And, I mean, the curious thing is that I remember very, very clearly the morning after her death when my father sat my brother and me down on the end of his bed to tell us that our mother had died. But when I try to look back beyond that very clear memory, it's just blackness. I can't see anything. Can't remember a thing.
Oh, wow. So the exercise of writing the book and doing the research revealed certain things to you, but it did not stir any latent memories that just didn't surface, huh?
Nothing concrete. I mean, it stirred a huge amount of emotion, and I'm sure that emotion was me connecting perhaps with things that haven't yet risen to the surface of my brain. But no, nothing. Not like a glimpse, a voice, a sound, a smell. Nothing. It's really, it's sad.
So take us. First of all, where are you calling from, Jeremy? Where are you?
From London.
Oh, you're in London. Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'm in London, where the book is set.
Okay, but you teach in North Carolina?
I do, but it's a low residence MFA. So it's a Master of Fine Arts. I teach fiction, and we gather for a period of just under 2 weeks at the beginning of each semester, and then everybody goes home, students and faculty, and the rest of the teaching is done individually by email.
Oh my, that's fascinating.
Your mother's book, The Captive Wife. Can I ask you about that real quickly?
Absolutely.
It was published, correct?
Yes, it came out about 4 or 5 months after she died in 1965, and it caused a huge stir in Britain. It was the first book that really questioned whether the woman at home, the young mother at home with her children, might not be perfectly happy. The 60s didn't really get going until 64, 65. So this was written and researched in a period that was still very much under the influence of the post-war period, the 50s, where the whole idea of the woman at home, the mother, sort of bringing new life into the world to replace all those lost in the war, was the sort of central thinking. And the book, like Betty Friedan's The Feminine Mystique in America, questioned that idea. So it created a huge stir, but of course she wasn't alive to see that.
But did the book give you a clue as to why she committed suicide?
Well, that's an interesting question. I mean, I looked in lots and lots of different directions to try and understand what had happened. And certainly her book was one, the thing, I hadn't actually read the book. Although I had knew it existed, and I even had a copy in my 20s, I didn't read it, and I didn't read it, and I didn't read it. And I think that I didn't do so because, for a couple of reasons. One, that it was all I had of her. Everything of my mother's was thrown away, and we didn't talk about her when I was growing up. My father, my grandparents decided it was best, really, if we tried to move on. I knew very little about her, and the only thing I had was this book, which I found on a shelf in our house, and then eventually got a copy of my own later on when it was republished. And I think I worried that if I read the book, I would, and it wasn't interesting, then that was all I had. It was like a sort of relic. It was important to me. And also I think I was a bit afraid of the book because of its title, The Captive Wife, its suggestion, its feminism. And I felt as a man who had been rejected once by her as a boy, I felt that I'm not sure I wanted to read it and be rejected again by her as an adult, as a man.
Yeah, I can see that. My gosh, I can see that real clearly. So as the son, you might think that The Captive Wife, just the title itself implied that she was captive not only because she was somebody's wife, but also because she was somebody's mother, being you.
And your brother.
You and your brother, yeah.
Yes, all those things. So, but when I read it, it was actually, for our own time, a very mild feminist book. And when I first read it, I was really disappointed in it because it wasn't written in a personal tone. It was an academic work, and it didn't seem to represent her at all. But then when I read it again and again, I began to sort of read between the lines and see how much she was actually, I think, writing, in part at least, about herself.
Well, your title is way more emotional than her title. The Captive Wife says something, but your title seems to be more loving. A Woman on the Edge of Time. That to me sounds like you discovered something about your mother that changed the way you felt about her. Am I right?
Well, I discovered lots of things that because I really knew very little about her. The only person who spoke to me about her through all my childhood was my grandmother, and she just told me a handful of stories about her childhood mischiefs and adventures. How she locked the housekeeper in the chicken shed so that until she agreed to stop smacking her son, who was Hannah's little friend. How she dropped a penny on the bus so she could look up a Scotsman's kilt to see, as she called it, the thing itself. So this is all I really knew about. And so she was a sort of fairy tale character to me, really. And so when I began to, investigate, I discovered bit by bit, piece by piece, talking to people, finding documents, I discovered something at least of the woman that she really was, the girl, the woman, the teenager, the woman that she became.
Yes.
So I found out an awful lot about her, yeah.
So, I mean, if we were to do research on somebody like Winston Churchill, who has, volumes written about him, it might be easy, but at the same time, we're probably going to retell a story that's already been told. Mm-hmm. In your case, you have to do research on somebody who you literally have to talk to other people because there's nothing written other than the notes that she left and the book that she wrote.
Well, and most of those, other than her book, which, as I said, was very impersonal, almost everything of hers was thrown away. My grandparents and my father threw pretty much everything of hers away. There were, so it was really difficult for me at first. What I did was, as you said, I tracked down anyone who knew her. So I spoke in the end to about 70 different people who knew her. But these were people now in their late 70s. Talking to them about.
Did they speak? And I don't mean to keep interrupting, but I'm just curious.
Not at all.
Did they respond lovingly? Could you tell that they adored your mother, or did your mother rub them the wrong way, or was there a mix?
Well, at first people were quite hesitant because it had been such a long taboo. I think people, even her friends, had bought into the taboo. And this was, I think, different times, 50, 60 years ago. Yeah. People responded in different ways. So at first people were reluctant to talk to me a little bit until I said, look, I really want to know. And then they opened up and there was an outpouring often of their memories. And the majority of them seemed to be very fond of my mother and welcomed me with open arms. There were a few I talked to. Obviously, she had rubbed up the wrong way. There was one woman I spoke to who actually lives in America now, and I kept trying to contact her, and eventually she called me and said, I really don't want to talk to you. And I later learned from someone else that they'd had a row when they were about 12 at school.
Oh.
So obviously still hadn't forgiven my mother for whatever she'd done. And my mother, I think, was quite a challenging person, very forceful personality. So I think that she did leave people at various points loving her a little bit less. But the vast majority spoke with great sort of admiration, love, warmth about her.
Wow. You've given us a great first part of this interview. We need to take a break and do the second part. Jeremy Gavron is on the phone. He's an award-winning author. His book is about his mom, who he lost when he was 4 years old. She killed herself. The book is titled A Woman on the Edge of Time. A son investigates his trailblazing mother's young suicide. I want to ask why the word trailblazing, what he discovered, and maybe kind of get to some of the book itself. Jeremy, hang in there. We'll take a little break and be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. On this Monday, a nice day with lots of sunshine and low humidity. The high 77 to 81. Partly cloudy Monday night, lows ranging from the low and mid-50s in the coolest inland spots to 64 on the coast. Tuesday will be partly sunny with a high of 80 to 84. Wednesday, partly sunny and breezy. There may be an afternoon shower in spots near the coast, the high 81 to 85. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Hello, gorgeous.
Hi, this is Becky at Hello Gorgeous Salon. Let's get rid of those sun damaged ends and faded out color and get into something rich and vibrant. It's time to get that new look started. So call today and set up your appointment at Hello Gorgeous Salon, 351-5358. Hello Gorgeous is a certified Brazilian blowout salon. We can tame those locks, leaving your hair healthy and shiny with a Brazilian smoothing treatment. And whether you're going on a job interview or out on a date, your hands do a lot of talking. Manicures are a must. Hello Gorgeous is a full-service salon, so let us help you make a great first impression. Call us today to set your appointment at Hello Gorgeous. Our number is 352-351-5358. Again, that's 352-351-5358. Hello Gorgeous is conveniently located in the heart of downtown Ocala, right next to the historic Marion Theater. And don't forget, we also do men and children's cuts too.
Hello, gorgeous.
Immerse yourself in a creative blend of art, music, and culture at the 35th Annual Downtown Festival and Art Show, November 5th and 6th in downtown Gainesville. Explore a stunning collection of artwork by 240 artists and marvel at world-class paintings, vivid photography, unique sculpture, dazzling jewelry, and so much more. Enjoy continuous entertainment on 4 stages all weekend, including a downtown blues concert on Friday night. And bring the kids for free art activities at the Children's Imagination Station. For more information, call 352-334-ARTS.
Here's what you may have missed on the John Tesh Radio Show.
The secret to longevity, it may just come down to these 2 words: eat less. Realtor Magazine says this is a hot trend. Urinals are going from train stations, ballparks, and public restrooms right into the home. So what makes people stay madly in love? The study found that couples who use good communication skills are more likely to remain deeply in love because they know they're both on the same page.
Intelligence for your life on the John Tesh Radio Show. Don't miss this stuff.
All right, 18 minutes after 10 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in London. Did he say he was in
London, England.
Jeremy Gavron is on the phone. His book is called A Woman on the Edge of Time, and I just got my copy. I didn't realize it was even here, so I have not been able to read it, but I was
my error.
Fascinated with this story. Jeremy, we just got the book. I'm holding it now. Wow.
It looks nice, doesn't it?
It looks really nice. And your mom was a pretty lady. Look at her on the cover. Do you know what? I was thinking about this during the break, that the one thing as parents that we want to do is we want to influence our children in a good way. Did your mother influence you in a good way or in any way? Obviously not in her lifetime, but did your research help influence you at all?
Well, it's funny about her lifetime, because my wife always says to me, because rightly or wrongly, she says I'm a good father, and she says that my mother must have given me something in those first 4 years that means that I can be a good father. So I don't know whether that's true or not. I think, look, suicide casts a long shadow, and my brother and I both grew up in the shadow of that suicide, and I think it's not a helpful thing to grow up in. But researching her life and getting to know her, I think it did teach me. It taught me about her. I got to know her. It taught me more about myself. I think I understand myself better now that I know my mother. I feel more complete. And I think in answering your question, most importantly, I spent 7 years researching and writing this book. And a lot of that time I was looking at the world through the eyes of a woman. And a woman who was struggling to express herself, to fulfill herself at a very challenging time in history, the sort of that 60s, that change from the 50s into the 60s. So I think it's not often that a man gets a chance for a long period of time to be looking at the world through the eyes of a woman. And I think that really changed me and made me see the world in different ways. I have daughters, a wife. I think it made me even more sympathetic to what it's like to be a woman.
That's a beautiful thing you just said, Jeremy. Here's the irony, though. Had your mom not killed herself, you wouldn't have looked through those eyes. Not the same way in other words, her death, her suicide, it actually made you look through her eyes with more accuracy. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you asked me earlier about the reception I got from her, the people I spoke to, her friends, colleagues, school friends. And they gave me such a wonderful reception, one after the other, and it was such a pleasure meeting them. And I think I was also most of them were women, and I was finding these women the age of my mother who knew my mother, and I think I was kind of, in a little way, looking for motherhood in them. It was such a rich experience meeting them that I came almost to feel that itself was a gift from my mother, kind of gift, Hannah's gift, I thought of it.
I bet that to her female friends, though, they probably were wishing that they would have had her spirit and her courage to move forward as each person individually, rather than conforming to what the era was about.
Well, that's certainly true. So many of them would say to me, "Oh, Hannah was ahead of her time," and because she was writing about the situation of women, but she was also trying to live her life in a more complete way than many women at the time. She wasn't satisfied with just being a housewife. She wanted to work. She wanted to write, and this was partly, what contributed, I think, to the troubles she got into, because she was just young enough. She was 29 when she died, and she was just young enough to really embrace the new world of the 1960s. She started wearing miniskirts and boots and had her hair done in that sort of 60s bob style. Mm-hmm. And she had an affair. She was working at an art college in North London. And the art colleges in London were really the epicenters of the new world of the swinging 60s. The Rolling Stones played in the bar of Hornsey Art College where she was teaching, that kind of thing. There were new ideas in the air. Yeah. And she ended up having an affair with a young man who she was teaching with. And that was really part of what precipitated her death.
So did she leave a diary?
Well, I don't know, because everything was thrown away. When I started looking for her material, there was nothing left. Okay. But my grandfather left a diary. Her father left a diary.
Okay.
And it covered the period of her death in great detail. So that was an absolutely essential tool and there were, when I found his diaries, which was scrawled in a kind of almost illegible hand, there were about 6,000 pages of diaries. And it took me about 4 months to work my way through them, and that was a very emotional time, you can imagine.
Was she a different woman when she and your dad met and got married, and then was she forced to conform after they got married?
Well, that's a really interesting question. I think that gets to the heart of the matter. She was 18 when they married. They met when she was 17 when they married, and she was 17 when they met and 18 when they married. And my father was six years older than her. And he was already, when they got married, certainly he was already working. He'd been to university. He'd been in the army. He was posted in Berlin in the post-war period. He'd lived quite a lot by the time they got married, whereas she was still very young. Had come almost straight from boarding school, and then she'd spent a year at the Royal Academy of Dramatic Art. So she was a very sort of eager young girl, really, when they got married. And initially, I think my father was very much the dominant figure. He was earning money, doing well. He was a sort of successful young entrepreneur. But as she grew older, and as at the same time as she was growing older, the 60s was emerging. Women were being promised more, offered more in life. I think she began to change, and she began to grow. I think my father didn't really change from the person he was when they got married, but my mother did. And like many feminists at that time, she began to see things in a different way and to want more out of life than being a secondary person in the marriage. I think she began to want that equality.
Exactly, a partnership.
And I know, London was kind of the epicenter of that whole cultural change that the world was going through at that time. I mean, it showed itself in the art, it showed itself in the music of the time, it showed itself in the music personalities who were saying the things that you're saying. And had they not said it and been so vocal about it, John Lennon comes to mind, of course, I don't know that those changes would have happened. So it's interesting how you're at the epicenter of it, but yet it was still, it still had a stronghold on your mom as much as it did anybody anywhere else.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think there were, if you look New York, San Francisco, London, these places were pretty much on a sort of equal basis. But she really, I think my father was just that little bit older, and he really was a product of the 50s, she became someone who embraced the 1960s. She would sing Beatles songs, people told me. She liked op art. She would shop on Carnaby Street. One of the things I did find, sort of hidden away, my stepmother hid what little she found in the house away, and I found it was some returned checks. In those days, when you wrote a check, the bank would, in England at least, the bank would send you back the check after it had been cancelled. And one of the checks was 2 days before she died, was to a place called the Zing Boutique, where she'd obviously gone shopping for clothes, which shows you how much she was still living her life and trying to live it to the full.
Oh, that's so sad. That is too sad.
Moment when things went wrong.
Has your research had an effect on your brother?
My brother died 11 years ago, and that really it was his death. He died of a heart attack suddenly, out of the blue. So again, a young death, leaving children, and it was really that prompted ultimately me to write the book. I felt such profound grief after he died that I began to think I was mourning not only him but this older death, this death that I'd never been able to grieve for.
Was he older? Was he an older brother?
He was older, yeah. He was 7 when my mother died, and I know that he remembered her, although we only ever had one brief conversation about her.
That's what I was going to ask you. Would he have been a good resource for information? The book is called A Woman on the Edge of Time. A son investigates his trailblazing mother's young suicide. There is love in this book. I can tell that you love your mother. And unfortunately, you only knew her in person 4 years that you forgot about mostly. Somehow she's with you. I don't know. I believe in an afterlife, and hopefully she's looking down and realizing that you connected with her. I don't know. I'm not a psychic in any way, but I have a copy.
I don't know about that, but I do feel very much more strongly connected to her now, and I have pictures of her up in my house, and she's with me. I have a relationship with her now, in the way that we continue to have relationships with people even after they die.
Yeah.
I didn't have one with her, but I do have one with her now, and that's really precious to me.
And the picture in the back of the book, that's of you and her?
Yes, that's for me, and it's curious. I mean, it had faded. It looks almost like a ghost, doesn't it?
It does. It does very much so.
Where's that picture?
Yeah, I feel almost. Yeah, she was disappearing at the time.
Oh my goodness, it's a beautiful book. You've done a great job, Jeremy. Thank you for being on the air. Call me, listeners. Call me if you want the book. I have a copy of it right here. It's fresh out of the mail. Mm-hmm. The rest of us have to go buy it. Jeremy, do you have a website you can send us to?
No, I have no social media. Don't do anything like that. But you can buy the book in all the normal places: Amazon, online, bookshops.
All right, any place books are sold. Again, the title is A Woman on the Edge of Time. Look for Jeremy Gavron, Gavron. Jeremy, thank you for being on the air with us. What a touching story you've told.
Thank you. It's been a real pleasure.
We'll take a little break, and we'll be right back.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Safe boating is no accident. On this Monday, a nice day with lots of sunshine and low humidity. The high 77 to 81. Partly cloudy Monday night, lows ranging from the low and mid-50s in the coolest inland spots to 64 on the coast. Tuesday will be partly sunny with a high of 80 to 84. Wednesday, partly sunny and breezy. There may be an afternoon shower in spots near the coast, the high 81 to 85. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. He's suspected of wounding 2 officers, carjacking a vehicle, then killing 2 of his family members in their home near Oklahoma City, and he's still at large.
He is supposedly armed with a automatic rifle and is possibly in a 2007 silver Mitsubishi Eclipse.
Lincoln County 911 dispatcher Tyler Carton, the suspect, was recently jailed on a child sexual assault complaint. Early voting underway in 34 states could play a big role in the presidential election.
Trump's doing well with early voters in Ohio, Iowa, and Georgia. Clinton's early vote efforts appear strong in Florida, North Carolina, Arizona, and Colorado.
Fox's Carl Cameron in Florida, where early voting started today. Smithsonian officials clicking their heels, saying they have enough cash to preserve Dorothy's ruby red slippers from The Wizard of Oz. A Kickstarter campaign raised $300,000. Fox News, we report, you decide.
If you've heard of WeatherTech floor liners, you probably know that for your vehicle's floor, nothing protects better. But what about protection for the rest of your car or truck? I'm David McNeil, founder of WeatherTech. Besides our floor liners, we design, engineer, and manufacture a wide range of automotive accessories right here in America. And just like our floor liners, everything is done to the highest standards possible. We understand what kind of investment owning a vehicle can be, so we do everything possible to help you protect it. We don't take shortcuts, and we never make concessions when it comes to quality. For everything from cargo liners to cleaning and detailing supplies to mud flaps and car covers, the one place you need to go is WeatherTech.com. So if you are familiar with our floor liners, just imagine how well the rest of our products will work for you. Learn more about